Hello, I am Dr. Cara English, and I am the CEO of Cummings Graduate Institute for Behavioral Health Studies. We are an 100% online institution. We have one degree option at this time, the Doctor of Behavioral Health degree. And we are noticing in our communities across the nation the need for better information that helps you right away do something to feel better, given the current situation with our national pandemic and many other issues, racial tension, and lots of scary news coming in on a daily basis. So I thought I'd check in with everybody today and offer some food for thought as well as some practical skills. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what triggered means, how to identify triggers, helpful actions versus non-helpful actions to take when triggered, and how to develop coping skills and a support network that you need to stay well and be well more often than not. So first, let's talk a little bit about what a trigger is. There are a lot of hashtags, hashtag triggered, and language on the internet and on social media channels right now about being triggered and having a very hard time coping with on a daily basis, a minute by minute change in our living situation. So whether it is health related and related to COVID-19, if it is protest related or national or international news related, it's a very difficult time to be well regulated as a human being right now. Internal triggers, which you may experience, include thoughts. And a lot of times people will tell me, I'm a clinician, I work with a lot of women right now who are pregnant or postpartum. And a lot of the thoughts that new moms are having right now is fear for their family, fear for their child. It could also be just going out into public and seeing people wearing masks and just immediately triggering a lot of fears, a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of information about masks versus not masks that people are trying to wade through, make decisions, and decide how they feel about that. It can also trigger memories. Many people are equating the viewing of people in public wearing masks to videos of other countries where people have been wearing masks for years for public safety and thinking, I can't believe that this is how we're living now across the world, as well as memories of scary movies, Contagion, and some of the other movies that have the plot has been a pandemic, and that has resulted in hazard suits and government agents having to intervene, and a whole lifestyle being completely turned upside down, which many people are feeling right now. And finally, you might feel internally body responses, racing heartbeat, feeling knots or feeling your stomach being upset, just feeling a lot of tension in your head, neck, and shoulders, in your lower back, or just pain all over your body. But in the moment, most people report shortness of breath and increasing heart or racing heart rate as two of the biggest symptoms internally. Externally, triggers can be pretty much anything that is trauma inducing. So it could be situations that cause you to feel like you're on the defense, that you have to argue your point and that people aren't listening to you. It could be people who disagree with your beliefs and feel very differently than you do. Those people might be your close friends and family, leading you to feel like you don't have a sense of safety or security in your own family, in your own home, in your own community. It can be places, as I mentioned before. It could be language used. Many of us have triggers to certain terms, and that could be confusing for another person who doesn't understand that or doesn't have the educational base that you do in the use of the terms that are offensive to you. It could also be witnessing abuse or mistreatment. So watching the news and seeing people gassed, seeing people get beaten. It could be, out in public, seeing people in shops be attacked verbally or, seeing people argue with one another. It can also be things like anniversaries, holidays, that are trauma connected in your past. It's bringing up those memories. And then, of course, the media content and politics is very triggering right now. So let's walk through kind of a daily scenario that I hear from a lot of the patients that I work with. And this is something also that I have personally experienced as a human being currently. So we're out in public, people are wearing masks. It does look like a dystopian movie. So all of a sudden, it feels like I'm living in a dystopian movie. That's scary. None of us would choose that. None of us would want that. None of us do want that. We want it to change. We want it to be different. We want it to go away. So my heart starts beating faster, which makes me feel anxious. I might start to feel short of breath. I'm trying to reassure myself that it's not a dystopian movie. It's just scary right now. Maybe it'll get better, but it's hard or impossible not to think about how scary it is. I might feel mad that I can't stop thinking about it. I might judge myself. Why can't I just stop thinking about that? Why can't I just switch my mind? Why can't I just distract myself with something else? And then I might start to look around and be angry at others who are doing things differently or clearly think differently than I do, either, about COVID and public safety or about politics. And so I start to feel very out of control. I might fight, as in, yell at other people if I'm being confronted about what it is that I'm doing or not doing. I might freeze. I might feel trapped and not know what to do. Do I stay? Do I go? Or I might flee, just abruptly leave the situation, walk out, often in a huff because I'm in an emotionally heightened state and I feel very out of control. When in public, we shame ourselves greatly when we feel out of control because society tells us we should be in control at all times. And so this just leads to the cycle of panic and self-shame that keeps us in an emotionally heightened state longer. So I want to talk about how, a lot of people tend to say, I'm just going to avoid it. I'm not going to go out in public. I've been one of those people. I've certainly said I want to go out in public as little as possible, not just to keep myself healthy, but also because it is very triggering to see the dystopian life that we're all living in right now. But healing actually happens when we're triggered and we're able to move through it and walk our way to a different ending. So this is a quote by Vienna Pharaon. So what that means to me is that if I continue to avoid that trigger and I don't successfully get myself through the trigger without feeling like I am stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, then that trigger will always be in charge of me. And I don't want that. I want to be in charge of finding control again in those situations. So what can we do? Because this is something that we all experience. Everybody has triggers. So what do? First and foremost, we want to identify what our triggers are. What are the internal triggers, external triggers that we talked about earlier? Certainly there can be more than what were listed, but it is very helpful to just kind of spend some time thinking about that and maybe jot a few down on a Post-it note, on a piece of journal paper, and then think about how we can avoid the avoidance, because we know that avoiding makes things more scary, increases our anxiety about coming into contact with those triggers, and really keeps control of us instead of it being the other way around. We want to be in control of ourselves. So if we can think about what those triggers are and try to stop avoiding them, those are healthier steps towards developing healthy coping skills, because the more you practice healthy coping skills in moments when you are triggered, the more you are in control. And finally, you want to develop a safety plan. This is something I work with. I have a safety plan myself because I certainly have an experience and have always experienced lots of triggers and have come to practice and use certain coping skills that work for me. And I encourage all of my patients to practice and use the coping skills that work for them, because we're all a little different. But it is important to have a list of those safety skills or those things that work for you, because when you're in the midst of a fight, flight, freeze moment, we're all going to get there. We are not going to be in control all of the time. We want to have at least a note to ourselves to help us remember the path back to feeling in control. So we'll talk about that. So again, let's remember internal triggers, external triggers. Take a minute. You can pause the video. Write a few of the things down that you have noticed just in the past week or two And in these days of social distancing and or quarantining, trying to stay home as much as possible, I know on a minute by minute basis, based on what's coming in, whether it's emails or news or text messages from family members and friends around the world, there are certainly triggers in abundance. So take a moment and think through what those are for you and maybe jot a few down. So then let's talk about what to do or how to be in the moment when you are triggered and identify what's going on with you. So the first step is just to start paying attention. A lot of times we mentally avoid when we feel uncomfortable. We try to run away into a distraction, pick up the phone, play a game, look on social media, look at the news, text a friend, look at my WhatsApp chat, try to find a distraction so that I'm not alone with my thoughts. And that creates a bigger problem for us because then we are not giving ourselves the possibility to practice just sitting with uncomfortable thoughts. If we're constantly running away from them, then we're not practicing healthy coping skills. It's not good for us, and it usually makes us feel sicker or worse, especially in those triggered moments. So just start to pay attention without judging yourself for wanting a distraction, without judging yourself for being uncomfortable. It is a natural human response to be uncomfortable with scary looking images of things going on in the world right now. Pay attention to how your mind feels. What are you thinking? What is the tone? Not just what is the content of your thoughts, but what is the tone? Is it really high intensity and, racing kinds of thoughts? Or is it a little bit more measured? What about how your heart or, your emotions? Are you feeling any negative emotions? Sit with them. We don't avoid them. Again, we don't want to distract ourselves away from uncomfortable emotions because then we don't practice a healthy coping skill of being uncomfortable and still getting through it. And just notice what's going on in your body. So is your heart, does it feel like your heart's in a vice grip? Does it feel like it's beating with every beat? It's a punch to your heart because it feels so tight. Do you feel shortness of breath? Does your stomach feel sick? Does it feel like there are big knots? Do you feel like your head, neck, and shoulders are so tight? Do you feel like your shoulders are up here in your ears, wearing them like earrings? So start just paying attention. And again, practice doing this without criticizing yourself. The first thing that we want to do after we try to avoid when we are encountering uncomfortable feelings is we want to judge ourselves for having them because somehow we think or we have been taught that having uncomfortable feelings and not being able to magically make them go away, we are bad or wrong. Not true. It is a human thing. It is okay to sit with your discomfort. It is okay to be uncomfortable. These actually are defenses, these thoughts, these feelings, these body responses are your body's natural defenses to trying to keep you safe. It's telling you, I feel uncomfortable, I feel unsafe. So we want to pay attention to it. When we talked about avoidance, we want to not stay away from the triggers, but we also want to notice that we have had some unhealthy coping skills in the past. So it's not just about leaving either a conversation or a situation. It's not just about even avoiding encountering that situation in home with, a partner or a spouse, with a parent, with a child, at work, with a coworker or a boss, but just within ourselves. So all of those things are avoidance. But additionally, we also avoid coping by using unhealthy coping mechanisms. Drinking, marijuana, drugs, including pills that have been prescribed, or medications or illegal drugs, drinking, drugging, smoking, tuning out. It is all a way to externalize a trigger and feel better in the moment without actually having to cope. So while it is a coping skill, it's not an adaptive coping skill because it doesn't actually help you heal. It's a Band-Aid. It helps you get through the moment. So we'll talk a little bit about ways to develop positive and adaptive coping skills. But first, let's rewind and think back to our COVID-19 scenario. So we're out in public. And this is, I want to present to you how it could be different if you are addressing the trigger and learning to use coping skills. So you're out in public, people are wearing masks, and again, it feels like a dystopian movie, and your heart starts to beat faster. But this time you say, okay, my heart's beating faster. I can feel that I'm having a response to this moment, what I'm seeing. Let me just take a mental step back here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to say to myself, you're feeling triggered, and that's okay. Take a deep breath. I can feel that that was a shaky one. I'm going to take another one. I'm going to let my shoulders drop away from my ears. And I'm going to recognize that, yeah, this is a scary situation. Lots of us are scared right now. I'm not alone. I'm connected to these other people here. I can see it in their eyes. They're not comfortable either. They're just trying to get in and out as quick as they possibly can. Nobody feels good here right now. And everybody looks like scared little deer, just trying to get out. I'm going to breathe again. I'm going to focus on what it is that I need to do. And I'm going to do it as quickly and calmly as I can. And I'm going to move on. So now, not only do I feel supported by myself, I feel connected to those around me instead of I'm angry at them because they look or seem different than me. They seem similar to me in many ways. I'm back in control and I can get my business done and stay calm and focused. So I have a lot of practice in this. What if you don't? Well, first of all, you can start to develop some healthy coping skills by practicing what I talked about in the scenario. First of all, taking that mental step back when you recognize, if you've been following the previous step of just paying attention to how you feel, body, mind, emotional state, when you feel triggered. You'll be able to say, I feel triggered. You'll be able to give yourself permission to take deeper breaths because we know that shallow breathing increases anxiety and can become panic very quickly. And that'll put you in fight, flight, or freeze pretty quickly. Giving yourself permission to feel uncomfortable, it just is what it is. I'm uncomfortable. There's nothing you have to do about it. You don't have to fix it right now. I'm not going to be able to fix or, reverse COVID-19 in this moment. It's terrible and I don't like it. So it's okay for me to be uncomfortable with that. You can even say it out loud. You can say to your child or your spouse or your partner, whoever you happen to be with, or even out loud to yourself, wow, this is really scary and I don't like this. I'm taking a deep breath to rally back into this is who I am and this is what I am experiencing right now. By tuning into your body and mind and just giving yourself permission to have the thoughts that you have, to feel the emotions that you feel, and to have the body responses that you have, you help yourself greatly. And this is a practice. So you want to practice this again and again and again and again. Additionally, if you're feeling like that's not enough, you can do a grounding exercise. So grounding exercise means coming back into your body, because when we get triggered, we go woof right up into our heads, and then sometimes we start to feel a little distracted and it seems a little out of control because we're not actually experiencing being in our body. So to do grounding, you basically go through, okay, what are 5 things that I can hear right now? Well, I hear the air conditioner blowing. I hear the phone line kind of making a buzzing sound. Outside, I can hear a car passing. I could listen for longer, but right now those are the 3 things I can hear, so that we're going to move on to the next step. What are 4 things that I can see right now? Okay, looking around this office is easy. I see my desk, I see my phone, I see my window, and I see the whiteboard in front of me. What are 3 things I can touch right now? Kind of the same, so I'm touching the desk. I might run my fingertips back and forth over the hem of what I'm wearing, because that too is a way to ground into your body, just simply by touching and noticing that you're touching something. Maybe I'll reach out and play with the phone cord here for a second. What are 2 things I can smell right now? I just had lunch, so I can smell tacos, which is delightful and delicious. And I can't really smell anything else right now, but I can smell my own deodorant, so there we go. And what is one thing that I can taste right now? Well, again, I just had lunch, so I can still taste those tacos, but I had coffee earlier and I can still taste the coffee too. If I can't taste anything right now because I haven't had anything to eat in a while and there's nothing nearby, I might just imagine for a second what it would be like to put a juicy lemon slice on my tongue, and immediately I start to salivate and I think of that sour, slightly bitter, slightly sweet taste of a lemon wedge. My feet are on the ground. And so I can also say to myself, my feet are on the ground. I'm supported by this bouncy chair that I have to help with my back, my mind, my body, my heart. We're all supported right here on this earth. So again, that gets you back into feeling in your body in the moment instead of flying away into panic or upset or anger. So the fourth thing to do is to really create that safety plan. Those exercises are things that you want to practice every day. But you also want to leave yourself a breadcrumb trail in order to get back to feeling in control when you're feeling out of control. Because sometimes your mind flies away on a moment's notice and you're feeling out there in the universe and you need a plan. You need something to help you come back down. So what I like to work on with a lot of my patients is developing a safety plan to help you feel grounded again, to help you regulate yourself again. So these are just reminders of things to do when I don't feel well to help me feel better. We're going to breathe. We're going to take a moment. We're going to evaluate the safety. There's nothing immediately harmful to me in this moment. I am in an office and there's no immediate danger to me right now. I am safe. I am safe here. I am in no harm. I might do my grounding exercise that we just went through. I might put on my new favorite Hamilton song. I might phone a friend or get up and walk around or dance around or several of those together at the same time. Going outside and being in the sunlight is that what do I feel right now experience. You feel the sun on your skin. It feels good. There's some vitamin D involved. I might water my plants or talk to my son. I might take a chore break. I might take my vitamins. I might make a hot cup of tea or coffee, or I might take an Epsom salt bath. So these are all things that I like to do. You need to create your own list. And so not now, but after you watch this video, I encourage you to take some time and create your own safety plan of the things that you can do that don't involve spending a lot of money or leaving your home so that you can practice regulation when you are feeling triggered at home. You also need to practice when you're not feeling triggered. So if you wait until you have a really overwhelming trigger, you get in an argument, you feel pushed over the edge and you yell at one of your kids, and then you're in a shame spiral about yelling at your kids or one of your kids or your spouse or partner, your roommate, then you're already pushed into fight, flight, or freeze. And so that's not a time to practice. So practicing this is just sitting in your day-to-day and thinking to yourself, now would be a good time to take a deep breath. I'm going to do that now. That feels good. That feels good. How am I feeling right now? I'm just going to do a quick check-in. Feeling okay. Feeling a little anxious today. Got a lot of things to do. Got a long to-do list today. It's okay to feel that way. All right, one more deep breath and then I'm going to move on. So it's not something that takes a lot of your time. It might take 5 seconds of your day several times a day. So even if you spent 1 total minute of your day practicing that mini response, mini check-in, that helps you be prepared for when the bigger things happen. So when you have a small trigger, every time you practice this, it helps you prepare for meeting a bigger trigger. There's also some secret magic in this, in that it actually makes the bigger triggers seem smaller and more manageable. So when I was growing up, my parents and my grandparents used to say, as long as it's not life and death, we got this. And I've taken that, but I've also had to realize at times that I was, ruling or measuring a situation that I was in as life and death when it really was not life or death. It was more of a lower on the intensity scale, lower on the fear factor scale of how bad is this emergency, and really, is it even an emergency? So one of the things that's secret in this sauce of practice is that it helps you to really better measure the kinds of stress triggers that are coming in. So practicing helps you to develop healthy skills. Not practicing or just giving yourself excuses not to practice, being scared and avoiding practicing keeps you stuck. So keep that in mind. It is your choice, 100%. And so if you're stuck, if you're not feeling better, part of that might be you're not practicing enough. Try to increase the amount of practice that you do or get some help with that, which we'll talk about in a moment. And the idea is you'll be able to eventually handle whatever life throws at you, and you'll be able to get back to your business more quickly. So like I mentioned, it's not always possible to do this by yourself. And if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling like I really can't develop a safety plan on my own, I'm just not coming up with any ideas of things that I can do to help myself right now. If you need help right now, I highly recommend calling one of the national helplines. The National Suicide Prevention Helpline is basically a national counseling hotline. It is available 24/7, 365. It's toll free, as is the Tragedy Support Line. That one is more for if you are really having a hard time dealing with COVID, if you're having a hard time dealing with the protests and the violence in our streets and in our communities and on the news every day, then those are two lines that I highly recommend if you don't already have a therapist that you're working with locally. You can also contact the Mobile Crisis Response Team if there is just a lot of trouble with one of your children or between you and a partner or spouse or roommate, and you really would like someone to come over and help you. At the end of the day, we know that not calling 911 or going to the emergency room for those kinds of things are going to be less helpful than getting the right kind of help, which is a mobile crisis team, because they'll have social workers and people who know what to do in a mental health crisis rather than a medical crisis or a legal crisis. So getting help developing your safety plan should focus on a couple of different things. Number one, make sure to include your personal wellness items on your safety plan. How much social support do you have? Do you feel very socially isolated right now? If so, what are some ways that you can increase your social support? Can you make phone calls or even just enter a group chat with a couple of friends who often struggle with triggers or often struggle with anxiety or panic as well? Can you support one another? If you're a mom and you're feeling socially isolated, you're home alone with the kids all day in, day out, it feels like Groundhog Day, it's very overwhelming, you feel like you get very little time for yourself. Is there a way for you to connect to a couple of other moms who have it the same as you do, or who just get where you're at and they understand and they can just be a soundboard for you to vent about what you're going through, and then maybe even support one another with self-care strategies, such as being more mindful about your nutrition and how much sleep you're getting. Sometimes we tend to, when we're triggered and when we're stressed out and when we have a lot on our plate, we tend to stop doing things as nutritionally as maybe we would like to do. And at the same time, we tend to engage in too much watching TV or listening to podcasts or reading new books or consuming media, news, social media, etc. And it keeps us up late and we get less sleep, and then we feel even more tired and exhausted the next day. So just be mindful of those things and try to make some changes in the direction of more healthy behaviors. Moving your body is always a good thing. Here in Arizona, it's well over 110 degrees. And so my key strategy of taking a 4+ mile walk per day isn't possible for me right now. I cannot do it. And my dogs that normally come with me can't go because it's too hot for them as well. And so even after dark, it's just not possible. So I have to do other things like dancing in my bathroom with music playing, or we have a pool so I can take a swim and, try to do things like swimming laps or treading water, or, doing some push-ups in the water against some of the resistance. And I don't have to do it for 60 minutes, even 10 minutes at a time, a couple times a day is evidence-based for improving your health and your emotional health. So limiting screen time and media exposure, we talked about before. A lot of people are having a hard time with that right now because we're all stuck at home. So we're looking for a distraction from the boredom that's setting in. And we're also feeling like we got to be eyes peeled to the news most of the time because it's changing so quickly. And we want to make sure that we're knowledgeable about what's going on. Many of us also are worried about the current political state or, movements such as Black Lives Matter and such as, BIPOC Mental Health Month. We want to make sure we're providing support. And so it's important just to give yourself permission to close the phone, close your laptop, close whatever inputs you have, and recognize this is too much for me. And if I'm not well, I can't help anybody else. Is it a privilege to be able to turn it off? Yes. However, if I don't, I will stay sick or I will get sicker, and I can't allow that. So I give myself permission to turn it off if I can. I will turn it on tomorrow or, at a later time when I've given myself a nice mental health break. One of the things that I highly recommend right now is entering into trauma-informed care, which basically is mental health therapies, including EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a really great evidence-based treatment for trauma, including PTSD, but not exclusive to PTSD. All of us are being traumatized right now by the national situation. It is traumatic. What we are going through right now is traumatic. So try not to judge yourself based on how traumatized you are versus comparing to other people who may be more or less traumatized. Try to just give yourself permission to get help. Mindfulness-based stress relief is another evidence-based therapy for treating trauma, as is DBT, which stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. All three of those have a lot of great evidence behind them for helping to reduce or helping to self-regulate when you are feeling triggered. Listening to trauma-informed podcasts or reading books to substitute out for maybe some of the news that you're putting in, some things that actually give you some actionable skills to support you. And medication therapies, if your therapist recommends it, if your primary care doctor recommends it, think about it. Medication can be a very supportive treatment, but you also want to make sure you know what's being recommended and why, what the evidence for supporting you in reducing trauma, especially panic and anxiety is. And just consult with somebody who really knows what they're talking about. So the point is, let's all do the work. Let's do the work ourselves. Let's stop working things out on one another, either through social media or just in the moment. And let's stop criticizing ourselves for being triggered. Let's stop criticizing ourselves for, having a reaction to something that is a normal human reaction. And let's give ourselves permission. Let's empower ourselves to grow through the crisis. That is really ultimately, ideally, the best thing that we can do. Surviving is great, but what if we thrive? What if we work and try to thrive? Then we set ourselves up and all of the kids who are watching us right now for a much better future. We really don't feel good when we are at the mercy of our own triggers. I don't like to feel out of control. I'm not a control freak, but I don't like to feel out of control. No one does. None of my patients do, and I don't either. So the whole point of this work is to be more in control of myself and my own response so that I can respond appropriately to what's going on in the world, no matter what it throws at me. So that's been our little talk and share on triggers. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to talk more with you about it. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day, and please practice those trigger skills that we talked about. I hope that it helps you.